I learned my wife was cheating on me because of a thermostat. That's the line I keep coming back to. Not a lipstick smudge, not a hotel receipt folded into a coat pocket, just a tiny spike in the heating schedule at 1:12 a.m. on a Tuesday. We had one of those smart thermostats you can check from your phone. I woke up to use the bathroom, glanced at my notifications, and saw that our living room had jumped from 68 to 74 in the middle of the night. I wasn't home. She was. Average husbands roll over and go back to sleep. I lay in bed in my brother's guest room in Baltimore, there for a short work trip, staring at the glow of my phone and thinking about that rising temperature like it was a scream. Why would my living room be warm at 1:12 a.m.? Why was the motion sensor lighting up in little bursts like fireflies on the app? Maybe she left the TV on. Maybe she walked the dog. Maybe she couldn't sleep. And maybe, I thought for the first time in 7 years of marriage, maybe there was someone else in my living room. Before I go too far, let me paint the picture. I'm 34, software project manager at a logistics company in Arlington. She was 32, a dental office manager across the river in D.C. We have a gray pit lab mix named Daisy, a small house with too much charm for what we paid, and a coffee maker that grinds the beans so loud the neighbors probably know our wake-up time. We met at a Nationals game. We married in a courthouse because we didn't want the attention, and then threw a backyard party with brisket and mason jars of bourbon lemonade because we did. If you asked anyone who knew us, they'd have said we were fine. Not a movie. Not a car wreck. Fine. But if you sit with the memory long enough, the hairline cracks widen. Her new interest in Pilates 3 nights a week. The perfect makeup when she didn't feel like being seen. The murmured laughs in the hallway when she took a call and closed the bathroom door, the one she called insurance billing hell, and I believed because I had no reason not to. Once, she came home with a perfume I hadn't smelled on her since college. Not the airy, citrusy things she usually liked, but something heavy and sweet that stuck in the curtains. I joked that she smelled like a hotel bar. She smiled too quickly and said that's where she'd picked it up, in a boutique in the Wharf Marriott lobby. So I lay there, in my brother's narrow guest bed, counting the minutes between motion pings. 1:13, 1:19, 1:26. Someone was walking through my living room and pausing, like pacing during a phone call, like the way you walk when you're trying to keep your voice from shaking. The dog cam I'd installed for Daisy, because she chewed the legs of the mid-century coffee table like it owed her money, had an SD card. If motion activated, it saved clips. I didn't sleep. I watched the cloud storage counter tick up. I watched the thermostat settle back down at 2:04 a.m. The camera stopped at 2:11. At 6:40, a notification. Front door unlocked. 6:42, locked. When I got home the next night, the living room smelled like the heavy, sweet perfume. Daisy did her full body wag and then ducked her head, guilty over a sock she'd rescued from the laundry basket. My wife, let's call her Megan, stretched on the couch with a blanket over her legs, hair in a perfect low ponytail like a woman in a commercial who never had a day of frizz. "How was Baltimore?" she asked, not looking up from her phone. "Fine. How were you?" She shrugged. "Traffic's been hell. Are you hungry? I can throw something together." I went upstairs to put my bag away. When she called for dinner, I said I wasn't hungry. I took Daisy for a longer walk than usual and sat with her on the curb near the community garden. The sky was purple. I opened the dog cam app and watched. There was a clip at 1:14 a.m. The living room from an angle low to the floor, Daisy curled in her bed in the corner. The edge of the couch, the coffee table, the blank TV. For 30 seconds, nothing. And then the couch cushion dipped, and a hand entered the frame. Not Megan's. Heavier, with a thin woven bracelet around the wrist. He leaned forward like someone reaching for the remote, and though the camera never caught his face, it caught the tattoo on his forearm. A clean black arrow, too crisp to be old. I paused. The bracelet had tiny blue threads in it, like a horizon. Daisy perked her head a little and then put it back down. My dog didn't growl. She only does that for delivery guys. I didn't say anything that night. I built a resolve instead. I've always been better with plans than with improvising. Numb is a plan. Silence is a plan. If you're here for the part where I trash the house or confront her in the kitchen and the plates shatter, I'm sorry. I decided to be precise. I decided to let Megan tell me the truth without knowing I already had it, to give her every inch of rope she needed to hang the version of herself she liked better. The next day, I did what project managers do. I made a board in my head. Columns labeled suspicion, evidence, unknowns, actions. Suspicion, nighttime heat spike, motion pings, couch dip, tattoo, bracelet, perfume, Pilates, evidence, dog cam clip, thermostat logs, door lock times, a $68 Uber charge posted at 6:53 a.m. To our joint card, pick up at our address, drop off near the Van Ness Metro. Nothing else around there but a chain hotel and condos. I didn't travel that morning. Unknowns. Who? How long? How often? Actions. Gather. Don't confront. Be boring. Be friendly. Be normal. I'm not a spy. I'm not a genius. I did what any idiot who doesn't want to be an idiot does these days. I went to our cell plan dashboard and checked our detailed call logs. She and I didn't share iCloud because Megan hated how I could see everything. But the carrier still recorded call durations. A number with a 202 area code popped up 4 times across 2 weeks between 10 p.m. and midnight. I dialed it from Google Voice, a trick I learned when I was 16 and trying to find out if Laura ever gave me the right number at summer camp. It rang to voicemail. Hey, you've reached Ryan. Leave a message. Calm, confident. Voice like a guy who's worn a backwards cap since he was 12 and never bumped into anything accidentally. Ryan, I don't know how to explain the way hate can feel like relief. If you've ever torn open your shin on a bed frame in the dark, you know that half second before the pain answers that you're alive? It was like that. The name gave shape to something that had been a fog. I said it out loud, just to feel the corners of it. Ryan. On Wednesday, Megan went to Pilates. I went to Target and bought a second SD card. I swapped it into the dog cam. On Thursday, Megan kissed me on the cheek on her way out the door and told me she might stop by Whole Foods. I said, great. Text me if you want me to start the grill. She texted at 6:18 that she'd be late. At 9:37, she texted a picture of a rotisserie chicken. At 10:22, she walked in the door smelling like the hotel bar again, hair damp like she'd rushed a shower. Friday morning, I scrolled the card on my laptop before work. 9:03 p.m. Front door. The camera caught just the swing of Megan's coat hem and the tail of Daisy's wag. 9:07 motion, living room. And then Ryan's forearm again. Same bracelet. She slid onto the couch, just the curve of her knee visible. They whispered. They laughed. When they finally kissed, Megan's hand drifted into frame, nails bright coral. I felt something in me go still, like a pond after a thrown rock sinks. I didn't watch for long. I didn't need to. I ejected the card and slid it into a Ziploc bag like it was a delicate organism. That afternoon, I called an attorney. People think that's nuclear. It isn't. It's a fire extinguisher. It sits quietly, it's mostly just a cylinder, but when you need it immediately and correctly. Virginia is equitable distribution. She told me after I gave her the rough outline over speakerphone in my car in a Safeway parking lot. No fault is possible. Fault can influence spousal support. Document, document, document. Don't do anything you'll enjoy writing about in a police report. I'm not that guy, I said, and hated that the first thought I had afterward was Megan's laugh if she heard me say it. Low and amused like, oh honey, you have no idea who you are until you're forced to be him. Most people aren't that guy, the attorney said. Until they are. I started sleeping on the couch because of an early morning, or because the bedroom felt too hot, and she didn't press. I kept cooking dinner. I kept touching her arm lightly when I passed behind her at the sink. I kept doing the crossword at the table while she scrolled Instagram and sent me reels of raccoons washing grapes. People say cheating wives turn cold. Megan didn't. Megan was technically perfect. She hit all the beats of a good partner like someone playing a cover song from memory. On the second Sunday after I found the bracelet on camera, I asked if she wanted to go to the Nats game. She said she felt like staying in, maybe catching up on laundry. I bought a single ticket and went anyway. I drank a beer I didn't enjoy and thought about the soft kick of her foot against the end of the couch, the way she'd hook her toes around the cushion seam, the way I'd once joked she'd hang there in an earthquake and she said, "You think this house can handle an earthquake? You think we can handle one?" During the seventh inning stretch, the scoreboard flashed a marriage proposal. The girl cried. The crowd roared. I thought about the courthouse where we signed papers in front of a clerk with a nice haircut and a stamp. When I got home, Megan was asleep on the couch, TV muted, a glass with a lipstick edge sweating a ring on the coffee table. I cleaned the glass, moved Daisy to her bed, and stood there for too long watching my wife breathe, wondering if the nervous skin at the base of her throat did the same jump when Ryan touched her hair. If you think I'm being dramatic, you're right. Grief turns everyone into a playwright for a while. The trick is not to stage the show. 2 more weeks passed. Pilates. Late grocery runs. The smell of that perfume blooming then fading like a bruise under makeup. I collected timestamps. I printed a credit card statement and highlighted the Ubers. I found a hotel on Connecticut Avenue that offered day-use rooms. On their website with a winking emoji next to a photo of a bedspread no one had ever washed properly. When the conversation finally happened, it wasn't cinematic. It was a Tuesday because work is always insane on Mondays and I didn't want to have this in my body while trying to wrangle 5 engineers who hated each other. I made tacos. I put on a playlist with a lot of modern country because she used to tease me that I was a secretly southern guy trapped in a city bike city. We ate in the living room. She curled her feet under her and looked at me over the rim of her glass. "You're quiet," she said. "I know. Big week." "Yeah." We sat in the kind of silence that feels like lying on your back at the bottom of a pool, looking up at wavering light. Then I put my napkin on the plate and said, quite calmly, "Are you sleeping with Ryan?" Sometimes the body answers before the brain gets its lines out. Megan's face didn't change. She had control there, but her neck flushed, a pulse at her jaw. She said, "Who?" And it wasn't even a question, not really. It was a reflex like flinching when someone pretends to throw a ball at you. "The guy with the clean arrow tattoo and the woven bracelet," I said. "The one whose name is on your call log 4 nights in a row and who you had on our couch while I was in Baltimore. The one whose Uber you took to a hotel by Van Ness on a Thursday night and home on Friday morning." She set her glass down very carefully. She made a small circle with the bottom of it, as if aligning the water ring perfectly, as if symmetry could make this a conversation about nothing at all. "Okay," she said. It wasn't an admission. It wasn't a denial. It was a truce with gravity. "Okay, what?" I asked. "Okay, we need to talk." "I'm talking." "I know." She let out a breath. "I don't want to hurt you." "You already did," I said, and realized that nothing sounded as ridiculous out loud as it did in my head. No one ever wants to hurt anyone in the stories they tell themselves. She looked at me like a doctor delivering a diagnosis she didn't believe in. It wasn't supposed to be this. What was it supposed to be? "A distraction," she said. And the honesty of it punched me so hard behind the ribs that I had to look down at my hands to remember what they were for. "From what?" "From feeling like a secretary to your schedule," she said. "From the dogs and the bills and the napkins exactly folded in thirds. From the way you make everything a system. You are so good at being steady that I sometimes felt like yelling just to see if you'd look up." I didn't say that that was the first time she'd called the dogs plural, that some part of her wanted to stack Daisy and responsibility together like they weighed the same. I didn't say that steady had been the only thing holding me together since my father died, since the world in general started feeling like a rug someone keeps twitching under my feet. I said, "So you slept with Ryan?" She flinched, not because of the name, I think, but because of the way I pressed it flat into the sentence like a thumb on a bruise. "It wasn't," she started and stopped. "Yes." "How long?" "A few months," she said. "How often?" "Less than you think," she said, and then grimaced. "That's a stupid answer. I'm sorry. The thing about fighting is that apologies sound like gun safeties clicking on and off at random. Do you love him? I asked. She stared at me. I don't know, she said finally. I don't think so. I love how I feel when I'm not in this house. That's the kind of sentence that would set Reddit on fire. That's the kind of sentence that makes strangers pick up pitchforks and parade through comment sections spelling your name wrong. It's also a sentence that's more honest than most people ever get out loud, and I will say this for Megan. When pressed to the wall, she told the truth. Not all of it. Not cleanly. But enough. I called an attorney. I said, I'm filing. Surprised her, I think. Cheaters assume they control the pacing. They forget that the other person can also get a song stuck in their head and decide to turn the radio off. That's fast, she said after a beat, voice small. It's steady, I said. It's what I do. Here's where the catastrophe starts, and I'll tell you right now, I didn't engineer it. I set boundaries and then let gravity do what it does. Ryan wasn't just anyone. He was the new associate dentist at Megan's office. If that sounds like a sitcom setup, congratulations on living a gentler life than ours. They had a fraternization policy. Megan had helped write it. Maybe she didn't think rules applied to her because she was the one printing them on letterhead. I didn't call her boss. I didn't email HR. I moved into the guest room and told Megan, calmly, that we were going to separate in the house until logistics made other arrangements. That my attorney advised me to keep records, to avoid joint expenses beyond the mortgage and utilities, to protect myself. I said all of it with the quiet a doctor uses when telling you to take the antibiotics with food. She stared at me like she expected tears or shouting. When she got neither, she blinked like a person stepping out of a movie theater into bright sun. 2 days later, Ryan's wife, yes, showed up at our house. I didn't know he was married. She did. Her name was Alana. She was smaller than I expected and angrier than I knew a person could be without spontaneously combusting. Megan wasn't home. I opened the door and Alana pushed a manila envelope into my chest so hard I took a step back. I thought you should see where your wife spends her Thursdays, she said, shaking, and then her face crumpled like a paper bag. God, I'm sorry. This is not your fault. I invited her in. She said no. She said she didn't want to set foot in the place she had seen on Ryan's phone while he was in the shower. The place where Megan was half-dressed and laughing. The place where Daisy's bed was visible in the corner like proof that we are all domestic animals in the end. She had screenshots. She had texts. She had a picture of the bracelet up close. Did you tell your office? I asked. They'll know by tomorrow, she said. He thinks I won't. He thinks I am swept. I am not. Do you want to coordinate? I asked because by then there was no point pretending our lives weren't parallel. Her laugh was the kind of sound a person makes when they have held a scream in their mouth all day and finally swallowed. I don't want to coordinate anything with anyone ever again, she said, and left. I sat at our kitchen table with the envelope open in front of me and stared at what people look like when they decide they live in a different universe and the rules don't follow them across. The office manager at the dental practice called Megan into a meeting on Friday. They had a copy of the policy with her initials. They had pictures that no one should have to see, ever. They had, I'm told, a very calm conversation about liability and patient complaints and the fact that 2 employees using the appointment software to schedule blocks of time labeled inventory that corresponded exactly to when they were not in the building was, if not a crime, certainly a reason for immediate termination. She texted me, I lost my job. Then, I'm sorry. Then, I can fix this. Then nothing for an hour. Then, please don't hate me. I didn't. Hate takes energy. I had planning to do. My attorney filed. We set a separation date. We set boundaries. Who uses the car when, who gets Daisy on which days while we're still under one roof, who sleeps where. I told her there would be no spousal support. She said that wasn't fair. I said fairness wasn't part of the vows either of us had been living under. Ryan texted me finally. A long paragraph that read like someone who has been told all his life that if he forms his words enough like an apology, the world will let him finish the sentence. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Sometimes not playing a song loud is the loudest you can play it. If you're wondering about the catastrophe, you might think losing the job was it. It wasn't. Catastrophe is a cascade, not a single event. Our lender had a clause about employment in the home equity line we opened last year to redo the bathroom. Notification required within 30 days if a borrower loses their job. Megan didn't tell me that when she signed. I found it in my email. Did you know lenders scan your credit every so often after you open a line? I didn't. They do. When they ran a soft pull and saw that Megan's credit cards jumped because she put 2 hotel stays on them in the same week, they inquired. She had to reply. She did. The line froze. The contractor we'd been planning to hire for the kitchen in August didn't get hired. Megan cried at the table and said, "This is not who I am." I didn't say anything. People show you exactly who they are when the rug slides. Her parents called voices small and unfamiliar. She had told them a version. I told them mine. Her mother, who had always liked me in the way a person likes a solid doorframe, said, "We told her this would end in ash," and then covered the receiver to whisper, for a long time, to someone I couldn't see. Megan moved into the guest room without me asking. The first night, it sounded like someone had dropped a marble on the floor upstairs, and it rolled slowly until it hit the baseboard. Her crying came in pulses, then stopped. She was up early the next morning and gone by 7. She returned with 2 armfuls of grocery bags. "I'm making dinner," she said. "I want to talk." Her hair was pulled back and her eyes were puffy. I let her cook. I let her fill the kitchen with the smell of garlic and onions and rosemary, the way she does when she's trying to construct a bridge out of steam. She plated the food and sat and took a breath that sounded like she was stepping off a high platform into water. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," she said. "I'm asking you not to destroy me." I put my fork down. "I'm not destroying you. You told Alana." "I didn't," I said, and watched the confusion move across her face like a shadow under clouds. "She found out. On her own. She got me fired." "You got you fired," I said. "You and Ryan did. Your signatures got you fired. Your schedule blocks got you fired. Your choices." "I made a mistake," she said. "You made a series of choices," I said. And I meant to sound calm, but it came out cold, like water out of a pipe in January. "You made them because you wanted to, and now there are consequences." She stared at me for so long I could see the ghost of myself reflected in her eyes, that funny wide-angle reflection you get when the light's right. "You are colder than I thought," she whispered. "No," I said. "I'm finally room temperature." I'm not proud of that line. I am a little proud of not saying the other lines that stampeded in my head. The divorce moved like all bureaucratic machinery moves. Slowly, then all at once. We listed the house. We divided the furniture like adults. She told me she wanted Daisy, and I said no. She said that wasn't fair. I said fairness wasn't part of Daisy's understanding of this mess either. My attorney sent hers a letter laying out my position. Megan's attorney replied that I was weaponizing stability, which is one of those phrases that sounds smart until you think about how people need roofs. I wish I could tell you that Megan dissolved into a cartoon cloud of mistakes and disappeared. People don't. They keep living. She found a job at a smaller practice 2 towns over, one that didn't Google her hard enough to see the Yelp reviews talking about drama at the front desk. She rented a 1-bedroom apartment with a balcony facing a parking lot and posted a picture of a glass of wine on the railing with the caption "New Beginnings" and 3 sun emojis. Ryan had his own cascade. Alana filed, quickly and cleanly. She kept the house. The office let him go, then quietly told a colleague who told a colleague, and the next offer he got came with a pay cut and no benefits after probation. He took it. Here is what I did. I didn't drink for 60 days. I ran before work every morning until my knees told me to reconsider the intensity. I took Daisy to the dog park at 6 p.m. and accepted compliments on her coat as if they were personal. I joined a small group at my gym that met on Saturdays and did deadlifts and made jokes about protein. I stopped looking at Megan's Instagram. I stopped replaying the laughing, whispering shadows on my dog cam. We closed on the house the same week the first leaves started to turn. The check came. I used my half to put a down payment on a small condo with a ridiculous amount of light for its square footage. Megan used hers to pay off her last gasp credit card balances and buy furniture with thin legs. A friend of a friend who stages homes for a living told me there is a correlation between guilt and chairs you can see under. I don't know if that's true. I do know that my new couch has arms Daisy can put her chin on without effort, and that feels like a kind of mercy. The last time I saw Megan outside of paperwork, it was in the parking lot of the grocery store where we used to pretend we were better people by buying kale we never ate. She looked tired and expensive, like a dress shirt after a wedding. She asked how I was. I said fine because sometimes that word is earned like a scar. She said, "Do you hate me?" I said, "I don't think about you much." It wasn't true yet, but it was becoming true, and I'm allowed to be aspirational. She nodded like she had expected that. She said, "I'm sorry." Again, like a person dropping quarters into a machine hoping at some point it turns on. I left with my groceries and drove to my new place and put everything away carefully, the way you do when you're trying to convince yourself that the inside of a cabinet can be a fresh start. Daisy curled on the rug and sighed. I made dinner and ate it standing up by the sink because that's allowed when no one is looking. If you want the twist, here it is. 2 months after the divorce, Megan called me. I didn't recognize the number at first because it was a landline. "Hey," she said, "I need to ask you for a favor." There are words that act like gravity wells. Favor is one of them. I kept my voice even. "What do you need?" "I think someone from the old office is, I don't know, smearing me online," she said. "The new practice is getting weird calls. My boss said he might have to reassess. He's conservative. He cares about reputation." "What do you want me to do?" I asked. "Write a letter?" she said, small, "saying you and I are amicable. That what happened was personal and not professional." I said, "Megan, you were fired for a professional misconduct policy you helped write." "I know," she said barely, "but people twist." "I'm not your PR," I said. "I won't lie. I won't write anything that makes it sound like I condone what you did." She made a sound like a balloon losing air. "Please," she said, and the way she said it made me picture the balcony railing and the wine glass and the sun emojis and the chair legs. "I can't lose another job." "I'm not trying to destroy you," I said again, "but I'm not going to save you from yourself. There are choices you regret and there are choices you absorb. That one I absorbed. The old office didn't need help smearing Megan. The internet does what it does. The new practice let her go the next week. She texted me a screenshot of the email. I didn't respond. It isn't that I wanted her to fail. It's that I refused to be the scaffolding for a building that had already cracked through. I know the part you're waiting for because I used to watch these videos, too, late at night at my old dining room table, bowl of cereal gone soggy, Daisy snoring softly by my feet. You want the moment of triumph, the redemption, the part where I say I met someone new and she laughs at my bad puns and doesn't flirt with the guy at the cash register when I go to the bathroom. Here's the truth. Victory didn't look like fireworks. It looked like waking up one morning and realizing my first thought wasn't fury or grief but hunger. It looked like the first time I ran past the river and didn't need to turn a sad song up in my headphones. It looked like the day I took Daisy to the vet and the technician told me she was the happiest dog in here, and I didn't cry in the parking lot. I dated, eventually, a teacher, a nurse who wore her hair in a messy bun even on Saturdays, a woman who ran a bookstore pop-up and could name every cloud for some reason. I learned to be alone in a room and not inventory all the objects. I learned that not every laugh in a hallway needs to be decoded. And then there was this Thanksgiving. My brother invited me to Baltimore, the same house where I'd watched the thermostat spike and felt the world slide. He makes a cranberry sauce that could solve wars. We played cards after dinner. His kids insisted on a superhero movie. I fell asleep on the couch with Daisy's head heavy on my leg, and when I startled awake at 1:13 a.m., I did not check the thermostat. That's the victory. That's the win. Not the papers with signatures or the numbers on a check or the fact that I kept the dog. It was the quiet. The absence of needing to monitor while pretending it doesn't hurt. The absence of a name, Ryan, ringing in my head like a smoke alarm. People ask me if I would take her back if she somehow did the work, if she apologized in the right cadence, if she proved she was sorry in a way that satisfied the part of me that wants balance sheets to even. No, The person I married lives somewhere I can't get to anymore. The person I divorced lives in a series of decisions I refuse to live near. If there's advice in this, because I know someone will want advice, we all do when we think the floor might not hold. I have only this: check your thermostat if it pings at 1:12 a.m. Sure, but also check the way you make yourself small. Check the way you call neglect being easy. Check the way you invent a universe where the person you love is doing their best, which might be true, but their best might be hurting you anyway. I can tell you the catastrophe happened to Megan. Jobs lost, reputation frayed, friends who looked at her differently, parents who stared at their hands on the phone just a little too long before speaking. But the catastrophe happened to me, too. It's just that mine ended. I stepped out of the burning building and didn't go back in to map the flames. A month ago, I saw a guy on the metro wearing a woven bracelet with blue threads. My heart slammed like I'd stood up too fast. He lifted his arm to adjust his backpack, and I saw that his tattoo wasn't an arrow at all. It was a line of text in a language I couldn't read. I sat there and let my pulse settle. I put my hand on Daisy's head. Yes, I'm that guy who takes his dog everywhere. She earns it, and I watched myself in the window's reflection. A man whose house is small and sunny, who owns 3 plants and has kept 2 alive, who doesn't have to count the minutes between motion pings to feel safe. I went home. I opened the door to quiet. I made dinner that didn't try to fix anything. I ate it at the table and fed Daisy some carrot slices because she pretends she likes them. Then I washed the dishes and turned off the lights and stood in the dark for a second to listen the way you do when you think maybe the house has a secret. Didn't. The thermostat stayed where I'd set it. Turns out I like my life at room temperature.